I'm going to call the meeting to order at 8:32 a.m. This is the Traffic Advisory Committee meeting for the town of Wakefield for Friday, January 10th, 2025. If you could remain muted unless you're asked to speak. The meeting is being audio and video recorded and will be posted to the town's website and WCAT. Closed captioning is enabled, so try to speak clearly and keep your mics muted so we can assist with that process. Item number 2 is attendance. Present myself, Joe Anderson, Traffic Advisory Chair, Dan and Lois Benjamin, John Connors, Matt Keeley, and Bill Renault. Did I miss anybody? All right. Item number 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance. Dan, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dan. Item number 4 is the approval of the meeting minutes from the November 5th, 2024 meeting. Do we have a motion on that?
So moved.
Anybody for a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the meeting minutes for the November 5th, 2024 TAC meeting have been approved. Item number 5 is public engagement. Is anybody from the public that would like to address the Traffic Advisory Committee on anything other than an agenda item? We'll give time for those agenda items, but be a chance, give you 3 minutes. If you could raise your hand, name and address. We have a couple of people that just joined. Good morning. We're on public engagement. If you have anything for traffic advisory that is not an agenda item, if you could raise your hand and I'll call on you. If you're waiting for an agenda item, just hold it till then and we'll give time during that agenda item. All right, last call for public engagement. Morning, Joe. Joe Conway's here as well for the attendance. Okay, item number 6 is an intersection review. I'm not sure if we have any members of the public here, but item 6 is for a review of the Chestnut Street, Prospect Street, and Parker Road intersection. We've discussed this in the past. On April 19th, 2023, the DPW assisted us by putting in flashing stop signs, and Joe's team at DPW added advanced warning signs with stop ahead at quite a distance. In addition to that, those stop ahead signs activate the flashing stop signs that they work well, but I don't think they've made the impact. Actually, I know they haven't made the impact that we had hoped for. So we've received a lot of resident complaints from the abutters there of screeching tires, near misses, actual crashes. We've had a combination of single car crashes that have nearly hit homes there. Unfortunately, just about a month ago, we had a 2-car motor vehicle crash that resulted in a fatality. These flashing stop signs were operating at the time. So I'm looking for the opinion of our experts and our engineers and the committee to see what the next steps are, because this intersection, for whatever reason, is one in town that it would seem to be a pretty clear, straightforward 4-way stop intersection like many others in town, but for some reason, I don't know if the roadway's dark and people kind of get lost in their thoughts and continue and travel straight through, or if they're going too fast for the roadway. I know in years past, when Chief Scory was TAC chair, a little further down by Brook and the Stoneham line, they had a similar problem. They put a flashing 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign to try to prevent crashes in that area, which I think did have some impact and success, but for some reason this intersection hasn't. Another update is that the light department and Steve Mayo have worked to improve the lighting conditions there. I got feedback from one of the residents on Chestnut Street that the lighting has definitely improved visibility of pedestrians crossing the street there. But we've had quite a few crashes there. They seem to be picking up in severity even with our mitigation efforts there. So I'm looking at the Mass DOT traffic crash portal. It doesn't have everything for the last year because it's a little bit behind, but I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 crashes since January of 2022. Those crashes range from property damage all the way to a fatality. However, besides the fatality, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those crashes have injury. So out of 12, 1 fatality, 5 with injuries. I think it's time that we investigate something else at that intersection. Lighting isn't improving it. Enforcement isn't improving it. I've sat up there personally. Within an hour, I think I stopped about a half dozen cars, ranging from vehicles traveling straight through with complete disregard for the stop sign to, some rolling stops. But those rolling stops can cause crashes too for people that believe they have the right of way and they've come to an adequate stop. So, Bill, I'll turn it over to you. See if you have any recommendations. I mean, I don't know if this is something that qualifies, or if we need to investigate further for a traffic signal, or if an actual flashing red traffic signal is more appropriate. I don't know where the updated manual stands on that.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought would be was speed sign. I'm trying to put those up there. If it's a speed issue, we could try to deploy that first. Could also look at a traffic study to see how fast people are going to confirm it.
I think the speed is definitely contributing to the severity, but
Right.
nobody stops there regardless what speed they go.
Okay. All right. So maybe it does make sense for a signal. Matt, I think that with the number of crashes, I think we're hitting the warrant for crashes, right?
Yeah, Joe answered my questions before I even got to ask him. So with the combination of fatalities and injuries,
Yeah.
they meet that portion of warrant 7.
Okay.
There's still a volume component to that warrant that should be met according to the manual.
Okay.
But ultimately, this isn't a mass dot road, so you don't necessarily have to meet all these warrants. I mean, you guys can put a signal in if you wanted to. It's obviously better if it meets the warrants. So I would suggest doing an actual signal warrant analysis just to know if it meets based on volumes, or if it really is just triggered by the safety part of the warrant.
Okay.
So that
All
would
right.
just require collecting some volumes and doing some analysis.
Yep. All right. I can move forward with our on-call on
Yeah.
that. That won't be a problem. I can get that going today.
Okay. No worries. I wish we had some. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on this? I did have some correspondence with Al Maroon. He's a resident there on the corner of Parker Road and Prospect. He sends me video routinely from his doorbell camera of vehicles just traveling straight through the intersection with complete disregard for the stop sign there. And like I said, I've personally been up there, and it doesn't matter when I go up there. There's violations. It's especially more frequent at night, which I think is contributing to the severity of the crashes. People just aren't seeing oncoming traffic, but we put flashing stop signs up there and put better lighting, and it's still not making the impact that we had hoped for. So
Is it consistent with 1 or 2 approaches, or is it?
It seems to be the east and west approach, Matt. So that's why we put the flashing signs there.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't have more of an impact.
Yeah, when you come from north and south, I think people are stopping there. The problem is not a ton of visibility. So I think when they deem it to be safe, they start to roll through. If oncoming traffic isn't stopping, that's when the crashes are happening.
Yeah, we got to look at sight distance too.
Okay.
And I don't feel like an overhead beacon would do much. I think it would, temporarily get people's attention, but people become desensitized to it. So I think
Mhm.
as far as traffic control goes, a signal would be a better option.
Yeah, just keep in mind, I mean, we'd have to kind of move on this pretty quick if we wanted to get funding for that, because we'd have to
Mhm.
go through town funding. I don't think there's really many grants that's going to help us with that. Because I'm doing
Yeah.
we've been talking about the corridor study for North Ave, which I have drafts of that I'm reviewing right now. So we'll be talking about that next meeting. But that's looking at coordinating all the other signals and kind of upgrading all those through a grant. But that grant that I'm going to apply for wouldn't really apply to this intersection, unfortunately.
If Joe gets you 1 second, if we were going to add this for next fiscal year, when would you need us to have all of our ducks in a row, Bill?
Well, whenever the warrant closes, right?
Typically,
I mean, I don't know if we would do this through capital, Joe, or how we would want to do it.
Joe?
It depends on the order of magnitude pricing you got for that.
Probably 400 grand.
Typically, that probably crosses into warrant article territory, which I think like DPW and capital is usually one of the last ones to go through that cycle. I haven't seen the schedule from Kevin yet, but it's usually first week of March, just before St. Patrick's Day. So it'd be pretty quick. The other thing to keep in mind too, we probably want to tag Randy in as soon as we start going, because he's already voiced, I know the intersection at Prospect down past the tracks is something that I know he wants to try to replace. So
Yep. And so
even
that's
if this
just the
thing,
grant.
if this thing goes in advance of it, we just want to make sure he's not thinking something totally different and the two won't talk to each other. But I know you got all that squared away. I just wanted to put it out there.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm moving forward with a grant for design right off the bat. So I'm working on that right now. So that would design replacement signals for Albion, potentially one at Broadway, and then the Prospect signal. So all those guys would talk together.
Bill,
And Main Street, obviously. I'm sorry,
anybody
what?
really, is there another, I'm going to call this one relatively small, but is there another one out there that we've discussed that we've combo it with? We might get like a better economies of scale or scope in the construction?
Well, no. So the signals and all of this, the reason I was moving forward with that corridor study and all of that was the grants through now that we're an MBTA community, they have the what do they call it? Basically you can do work within the zone. So that's the funding that I'm trying to go after. So hopefully that works for us. But then I was probably going to go through a Mass Works grant for the construction. That was my game plan. So, I think I'll be successful in both. I'm applying for the funding on Tuesday to design everything in that corridor. But again, it's too far away from the zone, so that I can't really lump in this new signal with with that whole study and design.
Do the islands have to stay as is, do you think?
What islands? The
Like
train horn islands?
No. Like where all these intersections kind of queue up. The grass plots that are sitting out there, like at the end of Cedar, where we have the hydrant and the grass with a couple of trees and stuff like that.
No, we're looking at that. I have drafts of that. That's what I'm reviewing right now.
You stole all my answers.
Yeah, no. There's been some comments I've received from the public on it, so we're trying to incorporate those in there too. So I'm going to have like 3 or 4 sketches to bring here to talk about that whole area. But that'll be, if it's not next month, definitely by March.
So Bill, would it make sense to put this on February's agenda?
Let's tentatively do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have any comments on agenda item number 6? All right. Sounds good. Thank you, everybody. I think that's a good plan for that. Item number 7, proposed residential developments. 7A, I have had no correspondence from that development team, and it's my understanding that the Board of Appeals denied that development, so that won't be on our meeting agenda today. I don't know if anybody was here for that, but that is Not the case. 7B, we have 154 and 158 Salem Street. Updates on a proposed 13-unit attached dwelling complex. Attorney McGrail, good morning.
Morning, Lieutenant, members of the committee. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail, representing the applicant on this. Nick Leo is the principal of the applicants. There's two of them actually, and he's here, as well as Scott Thornton, a traffic consultant from Vanessa Associates. This was actually before the TAC back in November. And if I could share my screen just to kind of reset the table on this and refresh the committee's memory.
Sure.
Thank you. So this is, it's actually a subdivision and a special permit for an attached dwelling complex. Properties are combined currently as 154 and 158 Salem Street. It will involve a new subdivision road that comes in, and then there are 4 lots off of that road. It's anticipated lot 1 and 4 will have 2-family dwellings. Lot 2 will have a single-family dwelling. And then currently we're proposing, this is currently before the zoning board, it's before the planning board for the road and also the zoning board for the attached dwelling complex in the back. Currently, we're proposing 13 units. That's going to be the max. I anticipate that might shrink down a little bit pursuant to our initial hearings with the zoning board. But nothing dramatic and certainly not an increase back there. So this was, I think, robustly vetted before your committee back in November. What had happened was we had presented a traffic study that Scott had prepared, and it was there was a question brought up by you, Lieutenant Anderson, that the speeds that were referenced in that study, you had mentioned that because of the road being repaved, you had some new data from Urban SDK that actually showed the speeds on the roadway faster than our report had reflected, of approximately 35 miles an hour. So you asked us to go back and revise the report and take a look at it with that perspective. And that's what Scott did. We submitted a revised or supplemented study in that regard. And if I may, I'm going to hand it over to Scott to tell you what his findings were on that.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks, Lieutenant, and members of the committee. So Scott Thornton with Vanessa Associates. We did provide a memo, I think October 21st, that Brian had referenced, and then updated that with findings for a memo dated January 3rd. And basically, we took another look at the site distances out there on Salem Street, using the speeds of 35 miles an hour in this stretch between Nablus Way and Toby Lane. And what we identified was that we're able to, the stopping site distance requirement for 35 miles an hour is 250. We have closer to 300 feet that's available. And in terms of the intersection site distance, we meet that minimum requirement for, the intersection site distance is a desirable entity, but we're able to meet the intersection site distance of 250 feet using the AASHTO definitions. So I think and I had gone out there yesterday actually just to try to get a feel for the speed that traffic is moving, and I gotta say 35 miles an hour feels high for that segment of road, but I've got in with a few platoons of cars to try to match like a floating speed of what those vehicles were using or were traveling at, and in general, on average maybe 32. But certainly the 35th or the 85th percentile was closer to 35, 36 miles an hour. So I think that the urban SDK data is reasonable. And the good news is that we have that site distance appropriate for that speed available. So I don't know if you have any questions, Lieutenant, or anything else.
Well, Scott, there was a proposal for this, for one parcel in 2012, and maybe Attorney McGrill's better to speak on this, but at that time, they didn't meet the proper site distances. And Brian, do you think you could maybe walk us through the acquisition of that other parcel and how that's changed? Maybe.
Yeah, 158 had a tree on it that was causing a problem with the site distance at the time. And my client acquired that property, and the tree's not there anymore.
I think you could bring up that that graphic and just show us where, just for.
Oh, yeah, maybe Scott can hang on a second.
Yeah, I can pull up the plan.
Oh, could you, Scott? You're probably better equipped than I am on that. Thank you.
Yeah, can you see this plan?
Yes.
Okay. I believe the tree was it over in this area, Brian?
Yeah, it was somewhere there. Yeah, somewhere in that, on that lot that was causing the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my recollections at the time, John Kennedy was the liaison, and he said, you got to get rid of the tree. So my client bought the property.
Okay, fair enough. Just want to clarify that.
Way to get rid of the tree.
All right, anybody from traffic advisory have anything to add? Matt Keeley?
Yep, just wanted to say Scott, it kind of looks like there's some existing vegetation that would need to be cleared,
Yeah.
which would probably improve over the 250 feet. I'm not sure if that's, necessary to achieve the 250 feet, but if it is, I think we just need to make sure that that's part of your plan, is to clear vegetation on your property or within the right of way.
Yeah, it's a good point, Matt, and we are planning to do that to clear the vegetation, to improve the sight lines and maintain those sight lines as need be.
Yeah, and our plans will have a landscape plan specifically as it relates to not only the attached dwelling complex, but also the subdivision lots, and that landscape plan that will be adhered to will take into consideration the site distances that will be locked in.
Yeah, thanks. Because I looked at the previous landscape plan, it looked like the sight line was like right up against where there was some landscaping being proposed. So
We're going to work with Scott to make sure that that fits.
great.
All right, any other members of traffic advisory?
Can I ask the question, how close are you to the rail or trail? And would they have lighting at the rail or trail?
I want to say you're within 300 to 500 feet of it, right?
Yeah, it's probably it's probably 500 feet. I would agree with you, Bill.
Yeah, and we didn't have plans, Dan, for lighting. We were going to do RRFBs for the crossing when we eventually extend it. That's part of the rail to trail design.
Yeah, it's about 550 feet.
All right, any other members of traffic advisory before I turn it over to the public? All right, any members of the public, if you have any comments, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. Sean, good morning. If you could just state your name and address, please.
Good morning, Sean Majerison, 171 Salem Street. Just to give you a visual, thank you for the board for allowing me to speak. I do see a couple of people in the area online, so I'm not speaking on behalf of them. I'm only speaking for my own thoughts on this issue. There are several things that I'd at least like to bring up. And I don't have any particular order. So I apologize for that in advance. Previously, it was stated that there were no accidents between 2015 and 2020. Does accidents include hitting a pole, hitting a wall?
It would be, from my perspective, a crash would be anything that would be reported to Mass DOT, and that would be by way of an insurance claim or a police report being filed or an operator's report being filed without the police response. So yes, more likely than not, those would be factored into that equation unless it was minor enough that somebody didn't file a claim and the police didn't respond.
Right.
Yeah, just to clarify through you, Lieutenant, we looked at 2017 through 2021, and you're right. If the crash gets reported to the registry, if there's a claim or something, or the police are called, then it gets reported to the registry and it gets into the DOT crash portal data.
So so obviously if somebody hits a pole or a wall and they don't want to report it, they just want to pay for it, it never gets reported. The reason I'm just poking at this a little bit is I cannot tell you the specific years, but there was a joke, and I have a wife and 3 kids, and there used to be a joke in our house about how many times we would, how often we would see people going down Salem Street towards town. And when there was just a teeny bit of ice or a teeny bit of snow, how many times we would see people go off the road on that corner. And that used to be the going joke. And a couple of times, and I can't tell you the year specifically, it was enough where I went down to help. And I cannot tell you the years, but people travel that road, but they just don't think about that corner for what that's worth. That's where I had sent an email, I don't even know, like a month, 6 weeks ago, and kind of asking if there was any kind of, if the DPW actually, how many times that they would repair that pole, or if it was Verizon or whoever. I don't know who owns the pole, but it was just a thought that I had, because true accidents, I don't think I've ever seen any. Hitting poles and walls I have seen over the years. So just to give you a point of reference, so I live right next to Toby Lane. And so I have, like I said, wife, 3 kids, all of us until recently. So we had 5 cars here, 4 cars? 4 cars here. Bottom line is, when you go to back out anywhere between around 7 o'clock in the morning, there's a respite during the day, but even in the evening, when you go to back out, go to back out, there's no car to your left, no car to your right. By the time you're backing out, there's a car right on your bumper, honking their horn and giving you the finger. It's joyous. But I'm just telling you, when you think about speed, when people are coming down from the top of the hill towards town, they have to be going at a pretty good rate of speed to be right on your bumper when you're backing out. So I understand Mr. Thornton's comment about 32, and depending upon the time of day, certainly if you're during rush hour, you have to conform to traffic, and some people go slow, some people go fast. But the other thing, so that's one thing that I at least wanted to mention.
Just want to give
sorry.
so if you want to just hit the next couple of points and
there's a time limit.
Usually it's 3 minutes, but
okay.
Hit your points. So
I'm gonna have to ramble for a minute. Sorry about that.
Yeah, if you could just walk us through your bullet.
Absolutely. One thing I wanted to point out is when you were talking about the Urban SDK, I believe you were talking about I looked at the video. It was very interesting. The only question I had was actually 2 of them. One is, there was an average, but when you get into statistics, you talk about the median, you talk about the bell curve and such. When you start getting into those, really reading that data, the average is only one specific thing that gives you the overall average. But when you look at, you may have some people, like for our street and our Toby Lane, and people pulling in and out of our driveway, the median starts getting more and more if people are traveling at a higher rate of speed versus those people that are pulling into the driveway and pulling out of the driveway. That affects the median a lot. So just something to think about when it comes to the data. That's typically the median goes higher than the average. And I won't go into that more because it gets into more technical jargon, but median is an important point. Let's see, what else do I have? So reading, I've never read the common policy process until the situation. One thing we could take that offline. I could talk to Mr. Anderson differently, but I don't understand why there isn't the concern for the significant hazard is part of it, but it doesn't talk about one of the ways of addressing safety as reducing speed. I don't really understand it. There were several categories or several things that you could do mitigate, and one of them was not reducing the speed. That I don't understand, but again, I'm on a time scale, so I'm trying to trying to at least get all my concerns out there.
Talk offline about that, but that is a goal of the traffic calming policy is to reduce speed. And,
Okay.
and I guess
The other thing I wanted to give the town kudos because I actually work for a very large high-tech firm dealing with integrated circuits, and technology is quite frankly been my life for 30 plus years. And when I heard that you were using Urban SDK for the first time, I thought they get it because nowadays technology is really on spot. So when you tell me that, whether it's using signal towers or whatever, I have a lot of faith in that. And it is the wave of the future, and it is actually, I think Mr. Renault was the one that said the data is coming back very high end or very accurate. I would completely agree with that. If you asked me 20 years ago, even being in the industry, it's not accurate. Today, I would highly recommend that's absolutely correct. So kudos to the town to give you a lot of credit. And actually, Mr. Benjamin mentioned the same thing. One of the comments was the rail to trail. And one thing that I would encourage, I'm sorry, I'm kind of dancing around a little bit, just trying to rush through these, but I would encourage, there was a 300, I believe, I apologize, I looked at the video once and I wasn't able to go back, but going out of town on Salem Street, if you were to look at that data, 600 to 800 feet, in other words, coming down that hill near Grand Passage, I'm really curious at what point, how fast they're going there and how long it's going to take them to slow down between there and Toby Lane. So, but at the end of the day, I'm sorry, two more points. I'm making it as quick as I can. I know this kind of overlaps a little bit, and I apologize if it's not relative. Part of the plan, and I believe, Brian, I'm not sure if I'm correct on this or not, but I believe all the units are 3-bedroom.
Correct.
So I understand there's a car and a half minimum, which you've met. But realistically, if you're buying a 3-bedroom unit, you probably have 1 or 2 kids like I do.
Mhm.
So you probably have up to 4 cars, father, wife, 2 kids, 4 cars, and where are they going to go? And that adds to the amount of volume of the road. That's more realistic because that's why you would buy a 3-bedroom home. If you're a couple and you're in your 50s, why would you buy one with 3-bedroom? It's just not practical and not. Anyways, that's just something I wanted to throw out there. And the last comment that I have, relative to traffic, I would really, really like to see potentially from this committee, having to do with the project or not, is to try and reduce can't read my own writing. Reduce the curve to a lower speed limit with safety in mind, and even potentially put in a side crosswalk the road has come out amazing. The new sidewalk is amazing. I give the town a tremendous amount of credit. I personally love it. But it would be interesting. The more and more people are walking around. It's really amazing to me and nice to see. But a lot of people are on the new sidewalk and they're crossing over at some point. I just wonder if it wouldn't be smart to put a crosswalk from maybe the Smiths. I have not talked to them about this, so I apologize if I'm overstepping bounds, but over to Toby Lane to try and at least give the traffic a chance to say, hey, wait a minute, okay, there's a sidewalk, there's cars coming in, and when you put that together with the rail to trail, reducing the speed in general in that vicinity with the 500-600 feet genuinely makes sense to me. I'll stop there, but that's my jump up. Lot of jump up. Sorry about that. Appreciate your time. You're on mute.
Thank you for that. Appreciate your comments. We can definitely talk offline about some of those other points too.
Certainly.
Any other members of the public on this agenda item? Brian, do you or your team have any response to any of that or anything else in closing before we discuss?
No, I respect Mr. Majeruson's comments, obviously. And, you know, I just will clarify that with the 3-bedroom, you're required to have 2 parking spaces per unit. We're going to meet that. We're going to, I believe, at least meet, but probably exceed that at the end of the day with the final layout. Zoning board is always cognizant of that with visitors and stuff that they account for. That would be part of our Board of Appeals process.
Okay.
Any
Thank
other comments from members of TAC? All right, Bill, I think it makes sense at this point after these 2 meetings. This is a pretty low impact proposal. I think they've met or exceeded the stopping distances and intersection site distances required. The parking is not an issue. I think we could draft a memo, Matt, with some of the conditions that you mentioned with the
vegetation.
And things of that nature. So Brian, how quick do you need a memo?
We're going to be back, I think, at the Board of Appeals on the 22nd.
Okay, all right. So we'll do our best to get it in before then. It's a pretty simple one, but
Pretty straightforward. Yep.
yeah, I'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, item 7C is a proposed development at 484 Salem Street. It's a 24-unit mid-rise apartment building, and I think we have Brian McGreal again.
Yeah, I'm handling that also. As you mentioned, it's 484 in an adjacent property on Salem Street. This is behind the Dunkin' Donuts, right near Pleasure Island Road. I'm going to share my screen just to kind of familiarize you with the site. Hang on one second. We had a brief discussion with the TAC on this before, and then we worked with Bill Renault offline a little bit as was requested. So what is happening here is this is 484 and 504 Salem Street. The subject properties, this is the Dunkin' Donuts on Salem Street, which has the traffic light at the intersection of Pleasure Island Road and Salem Street. These are the combination properties in the back. There's a 3-family dwelling and a 2-family dwelling that are currently on the combined properties. We are in the process of working with the town council to determine if this is a good site for a quote unquote friendly 40B, which would be, you know, basically meaning that the town agrees that this is a great spot to put some 40B or, you know, comprehensive permit housing that would provide much needed housing and would go towards our SHI 10% goal, which is always a goal of the town. And so what they did is they agreed to endeavor with us into preliminary study to determine if it was appropriate to move forward with a formal application with the state. So we're kind of in that preliminary stage. They've appointed Town Councilor John Connie as our liaison. We've met with John on this. He knows what's going on. He knows we're here today. He couldn't be here because of a work conflict, but he'll either watch the video or I will update him. And so what we're trying to do is, before we go back to the town council, is to get feedback from the appropriate town boards or administrative staff so they can make a decision with us whether to move forward with the project. We've already had the wetlands delineated with the Conservation Commission, and that will work within our parameters. We'll obviously have to have a formal filing. I think once, you know, assuming this does go forward, if it does, once we file, I anticipate we'd probably be back before your committee again with the formal, but again, this is just preliminary to make sure that you don't see any, you know, huge red flags here. And what will be proposed, or what would be proposed, is a 24-unit building. And I'm going to bring up the kind of the latest site plan, if I could. Now that you kind of have the layout. Second. Sorry for the delay. And again, this is extremely preliminary, but what we're looking at is a 24-unit building with parking underneath. We have a lot of room for more parking, so there'll be excessive parking here. I mean, just with our plan, the required, if you look at the bottom on our preliminary plan, the required parking is 38 spaces. We have 42. We even have room to put more. And, you know, currently, as I've mentioned, there are 5 units there already. So we're going to 24. The way this works out, it's nice because it has access through, this is a related owner, the Dunkin' Donuts, to the people that own this. So we plan on having access easements through the Dunkin' Donuts that will take people right to the light on Salem Street. So it's really nice the way it kind of lays out, I think, from a traffic perspective. And in that regard, we've submitted a kind of traffic analysis that Bill Bergeron from Hayes prepared, which we submitted to you. And if I could quickly have Bill go through that, Mr. Chair.
Sounds good.
Great. Bill, thank you.
Yeah, as long as you can unmute me, that's fine. We don't have video here for some reason this morning, but yeah, I did prepare a report back in February of last year relative to this and went through the project-related traffic. And essentially, because there's an existing 5-unit low-rise structures there, and we're going to be putting in a 24-unit residential, the AM and peak hours differential was a +2 cars going in the morning and +5 cars going out in the afternoon. I mean, in the morning, for a total of 5 vehicle trips. That's one vehicle in 30 minutes going in and 1 vehicle in 12 minutes going out, going into the lighted traffic signal at for the Dunkin' Donuts at the intersection of Salem Street and Pleasure Island Road. In the evening, it's a similar type situation. The incoming traffic will be an increase of about 4 vehicles, which is 1 vehicle every 15 minutes. And the exiting vehicle is for the peak hours, 2 vehicle trips, which is 1 in 30. But overall, throughout the day, there would be a net increase of 74 scattered throughout the day. But our offices, as you know, is right down the street from this. I go through this intersection. I go through this intersection at least twice a day, and I've never seen a backup with the actuated light that's there at the Dunkin' Donuts entrance. So I don't anticipate any perceivable decrease in the level of service. The light provides a safe intersection, certainly adequate capacity for the type of vehicle trips generation that we're talking about. And it's fortunate that we over-designed the signal originally when we did the original Dunkin' Donuts, but actually it works out well for this property that's behind. I'd be happy to answer anything else other than that, but that's essentially because the minimum impacts on this, we thought that it was a pretty minor impact relative to traffic.
Okay, excellent. I agree. There's nothing glaring, Brian, on my end. The only thing that I would provide you as a coming attraction, if you will, is that the neighborhood of Walton Street, I've been receiving a ton of complaints from in regards to overflow parking from some of the recent developments there. The problem with this area is there's really no There's no on-street parking anywhere around there, so that would be the only potential place. And I don't foresee people parking all the way down Walton Street and then walking all the way there. But I know you're gonna get some public comment on that. So I like the amount of parking that you kind of anticipate would be provided. I would just encourage you to provide as much parking as possible when you kind of get into the site plan of this, because I think it'll alleviate some of their concerns. Again, I don't think it's plausible that they would walk that far, but it is the only true abutting street that people could park on if there was no parking there. Again, you could argue they'd park in the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, but I'm sure they have signage there that they'll tow vehicles if they park there, unauthorized. Again, it's not a huge concern of mine. It's just where I think you might run into some pushback, because I'm getting a ton of complaints as it stands right now, and they want to explore, parking restrictions there because of it. So outside of that, I mean, there's obviously no sightline distance issues. There's a great signalized intersection there. There's been recent improvements to the Dunkin' Donuts to help move the queue along with their recent addition to the drive-through and improvements that have been made there. So I think it's a great potential site, but that would be the only thing that I would say is make sure to include a good amount of parking, which it looks like that's your intention anyway.
Okay.
Matt, what do you have for us?
Just two quick questions. So the building that's immediately to the south of the proposed building, is that going away or is that staying?
Let me bring up the plan, Matt. Hang on a second so we can.
Yep.
See here. So these two buildings are both going away.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
And then minor question on the proposed building. Is it 4 stories?
It will be parking under and then 3 stories above.
Parking under and then 3 stories above. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. John, I'm correct on that. John Ogren, you're here, right? Just to make sure.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
So for 3 stories, we should use low rise multifamily for drip generation. It makes a minor difference, but nothing that concerns me.
And I think we'll be back, Lieutenant, if this goes forward. Again, this is kind of in the exploratory stage with both us and the town council to determine if both parties agree that we should move forward with it. So if we end up moving forward, then we will be back with, the site layout and, obviously for public safety comment, et cetera.
Yep.
Once that gets fine tuned. So, what our request at this point would be a correspondence to the town council saying that you've looked at this, and as you said, you've determined it to be a good site, no major issues from traffic. But obviously, I think it would be appropriate for you to reference to add as much parking as possible.
Okay.
Because I think they would want to know that.
Right. Bill, what do you have for us? Anything on your angle?
Nothing much. I think you guys covered it both. I mean, keep in mind it's the same owner, right, Brian? So, I mean, there can be a shared parking model here too. I mean, the Dunkin' Donuts is busy in the morning only. So, I think those front spaces, the ones that's near the entrance to the new development, those pretty much stay empty. So that might be something you can look at too.
Yep.
Just to kind of get you some easy ones that are already built.
Any other members of TAC have any comments or questions?
Just a public safety question, I guess. If I was looking for 504 Salem Street, I'd drive right by that building. Is there any way that driveway coming in back of Dunkin' Donuts could be renamed so that public safety, fire, and police would know exactly where to go?
Sure, whatever they want, we would do. That's not a problem. I mean, that's more of Bill, that's more of a town issue on numbering it, right?
Naming it, yeah. I mean, we have kind of driveways, if you want to call it. I mean, because that's what it really would be, that are named in town. So as long as it's clear and consistent, that's fine with me, obviously. And I think that's something that fire and safety should weigh in on.
I'm just saying, an ambulance going down there at 504 would drive right by it. At least I would. They'd never know something was behind Dunkin' Donuts there.
Oh, no doubt. And keep in mind, people trying to get to the development, right? So if you have a visitor, I mean, they're going to be driving by this thing 2 or 3 times if we don't sign it appropriately. So I'm assuming that's all part of your package, Brian, as you move it forward, right?
Yep,
I would.
good, it's a good
I would
point.
hope that we already respond there for the existing building, so we are well aware, as is fire and ambulance. But I do think it's a good point, Dan. If not renaming the access way, at least having a sign out on Salem Street that you know, whatever the name of the development is with the address would probably be helpful. But there's definitely options there. I think it's a good idea.
If I was a UPS driver, I'd be driving in circles trying to find that.
I'd be driving in circles if I was a UPS driver anyway, regardless.
They're right down the road.
They're right down the street.
All right, any members of the public have any comments on this agenda item? If you could raise your hand. Last call for public comment. There'll be much more to come, Brian, I'm sure, but
It will. Yep.
we'll provide a like an initial memo to town council that this looks like a viable site, and there's no glaring issues at this point, and we look forward to vetting it further.
Thank you.
All right,
Appreciate it.
appreciate it. All right, item number 8. Any matters from members of TAC that on the agenda?
We did receive our traffic study for Pine Street, so I'm reviewing that. It came in while I was on vacation, so I'll be getting to that this week. I'll forward it over to you guys. Well, not this week, probably next week actually, but I'll forward it over to you and Matt, so you have it.
You think you want that on the February meeting if we have one?
I think it definitely should be. Yeah. There's a bit. The synopsis is they say they have enough sight distance, you know, at that intersection to put a crosswalk in. That's the short of it. So.
All right, I'm sure they'll be happy to hear that. You know, the traffic counts we knew weren't going to come in, you know, from a traffic calming, but I think the big was crossing there.
Yep.
Okay. Urban SDK we talked about a little bit throughout the meeting, but that's we did our kickoff call, Bill and I, the other day, and we're going to be doing some training on that. It's a pretty robust system, but it seems pretty easy to navigate. So a couple of training sessions, I think even a cop will be able to figure it out, Bill.
I agree. And that will, obviously you're going to have access to that too. So
Yeah, I got notified yesterday.
So they have signed a contract with Urban SBK?
We're doing a 6-month trial on it. We did sign a contract for the remainder of this fiscal year. We're going to see what value it brings us, but yeah, we're going to have it. We're going to have it till the end of June for now, and
Great.
look forward to it.
As much as it costs, it'll probably save money in the long run.
Yeah, it's actually pretty reasonably priced considering what we might get out of it, both on the engineering side and enforcement side. So definitely looking forward to it. All right, anybody else before we close the meeting at a very early time for traffic advisory?
it's outstanding. We need to keep them all like this moving forward, Joe. The rest of 25, this is how we're doing it.
You can stop loading my agenda. All right, make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:26 a.m.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in February.